A very good morning to one and all present here. I, Sajal Mishra, student of DME Media School, welcome you all to the Vibrant India series, episode 73. I also welcome all the viewers who are watching us live on Facebook. Vibrant India series is an initiative of DME Media School for celebrating 75 years of India's independence. As part of this series, we invite inspiring personalities for online talk, interview, and interaction with our students. The invited personalities for this series are from all walks of life and from all parts of the country. And today, our special guest is Dr. Jyotika Ramaprasad. We welcome you, ma'am. I would like to take a moment and introduce Delhi Metropolitan Education to our viewers. DME is an educational A-grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, New Delhi, and approved by Bar Council of India. This institute offers BBA, BALLB, BBA, and BJMC programs. DMA believes in imparting world-class education to its students and training them to develop and enhance their skills. This education and training enables them in taking up challenges of the industry and creating a space for themselves with their competence and vigor. DME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes in the country. It offers BA in journalism and mass communication. It is recognized as a school focused on the growth of its faculty and students through academic and co-curricular activities. Major flagship events, initiatives of the school include BJ Varghese Lecture Series, Peer-to-Peer FAP, International Film Festival SIFI, International Conference ICANN, Jyotika, Convention of Media Students, VIS, Vibrant India Series, and newly added to the list is CCT, Check-in for Cognition with Team. This is a privilege to introduce you to the personality of 73 episode of the VIS. Guest of the day is personality radiating wisdom. Professor Dr. Jyotika Ramaprasad is working with the School of Communication at the University of Miami, USA. She has more than 40 plus years of experience in teaching and research. Her research work spans several continents, including America, Africa, Asia, and Europe. Dr. Jyotika has been Fulbright Scholar at the Indian Institute of Communication. She has been a Fulbright specialist in Germany, Kyrgyzstan, and South Africa. She has received Fulbright travel grant to teach at Mudra Institute of Communication. Dr. Jyotika has numerous research projects and publications to her credit. Her area of interest includes communication for social change, intercultural communication, and journalism studies. She has keen interest for environmental issues and has been a part of academic ventures for the protection of environment. Dr. Jyotika is an active member of International Association of Media and Communication Research. She is currently handling the research projects on the status of journalists in different countries in the third cycle of World of Journalism study. She has received the International Journal of Pubs and Politics 2022 Best Book Award for Hannets and T. Hannets for F. Ramaprasad J. and D. Bear, Worlds of Journalism, Journalistic Cultures Around the Globe, New York, Columbia University Press. I now request the technical team to show some glimpses from her life. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today. It's indeed an honor to host you. I now request Dr. Susmita Bala at DME Media School to welcome our guest.
Thank you, Sajal. Good morning and welcome everybody to episode 73 of Vibrant India series. We launched this digital program in 2021 on August 9 on the anniversary of Quit India movement. And we presented episode 50 of this program in 2022 on August 15 when India celebrated 76th Independence Day. Vibrant India series is an initiative of DMA Media School, Delhi Metropolitan Education. It is an online series to get inspiration from distinguished personalities. This program has been conceptualized and created by Professor Ambrish Saxena. Vibrant India series is a tribute to all those people who have made supreme sacrifices for the independence of our motherland. This program is a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, a celebration on India completing 75 years of independence. Let us have a look at the eminent personalities who have graced the VIS during the last more than a year. 8 personalities from the Defense Forces have participated in VIS till date. These personalities belong to the Indian Army, Air Force, and BSF. These include Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, Dr. P.K. Saxena, Professor R.K. Dargan, Captain Dharmveer Singh, Group Captain Ashok Kechodia, and Mr. Virendra Kumar Gaur from BSF. This include a woman as well, Squadron Leader Prerna Chaturvedi. 9 personalities from the education sector comprising education planning, teaching and research have participated in VIS. 8 personalities from the journalism, broadcasting and entertainment sectors have joined the VIS. 2 senior journalists, Mr. Rajesh Badal and Mr. Shambhunas Shukla, Mr. Sanjay Banerjee, Dr. Ashish Kulkarni from the industry, Mr. Sunit Tandon, an actor, news presenter, former DG of IMC, participated in VIS. Other personalities, Dr. Rajesh Bhatt, Ms. Sujata Madhok participated in VIS. From the social sector, 9 personalities, including 8 women, have participated in VIS. These include Dr. Monisha Behel, Dr. Mridula Tandon, Dr. Mridula Seth, Ms. Tripti S. Singhal, Ms. Vibha Lakheda, Ms. Bhavarin Kandhari, Dr. Meenu Walia, Ms. Meenakshi Gupta, and Padma Shri Jitendra Singh Shanti. 9 personalities belong to art, theatre, and literature participated in VIS. 2 personalities from the field of law and human rights have graced the VIS sessions, Professor Manoj Kumar Sinha and Ms. Jyotika Kalra. 4 police officers have also participated in VIS. 5 IAS officers have also graced the VIS. 25 women have participated in 68 episodes of VIS. I have already mentioned about 8 women working in health and social sector, 1 in the Air Force, 1 in human rights, 1 in theater, 1 in education, journalism, diplomacy, and police. I already mentioned some names. Some are here: Ms. Indrani Singh, Pallavi Fauzdar, Ms. Sachi Soni, Saloni Sacheti, Ms. Vandana Mahajan, Amrita Chaudhary, Meenakshi Pahuja, Dr. Bani Yadav, Dr. Parul Purohit Vas, and Ms. Parvati Menon. From the other fields, Mr. S.P. Rawal, Mr. Augustine Vallet, Sufi Sayyid Azmal Nizami, Mr. Balindu Sharma Dadhichi, Mr. Satish Saxena, Mr. Ganesh Falke, Mr. Himanshu Thakkar participated in VIS. Today, in episode 73, we have with us an inspiring and motivational personality, Dr. Jyotika Ramaprasad ji. Welcome, Jyotika Ramaprasad ji, in episode 73 of Vibrant India series. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for listing out the galaxy of experts we have hosted till now in VIS. I now request Dr. Amrit Saxena, Dean DME Media School, originator and ideator of VIS, to take the program forward.
So I was Welcome, Professor Jyotika Ramaprasad, in this session. It was a long due session. And since this is a long series that we started almost 2 years ago in 2021 on the occasion of India attaining 75 years of independence, and the whole idea was to bring to all such people to this forum wherein they can interact with our students and can inspire them. Since that was a time affected by this COVID-19, so we started it as a digital program, but lately we felt that this is the best medium for this program because if we are having it in the face-to-face mode, and then obviously we could not have been able to reach beyond Delhi and NCR. And then further, we thought that why not to reach out the Indians who have settled abroad, but who have made a mark in their own discipline. So that is how this whole program grew. We reached out to Professor Jyotika a few months back, but then for one reason or the other, it was not possible for her to spare time. But now we are at the fag end of this series, only 2 more episodes to go, which we are planning to conclude on the Independence Day this year. I will request you to please narrate your life journey to us. The purpose behind is that if somebody is narrating his own journey, it becomes more authentic and more acceptable to the audience. And also, if you are telling some such experiences from your life, some such anecdotes wherein there is an element of inspiration to the people who are in this audience. Please do that. Followed by that, I will be putting up certain questions. It will be in the form of a request to have some more elaborations on whatever you would have spoken in this session. And then the forum will be open to everybody here, all teachers and students, and who want to raise any point or to ask anything to you, so they will be allowed to do that. So that's all about this program. This is at the moment going live on Facebook, and it's also on YouTube, will be on YouTube after this program concludes, so that a wider audience can be reached. So now, without wasting further time, I will request you, Professor Jyotika, to please take the session forward from here and narrate your life journey, and you can take around 15-20 minutes for this session. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Saxena, for inviting me to this series. I'm not sure I'm as distinguished as all the other 72 of your speakers and interviewees, but I do try my best. I would like to start with, first of all, expressing a lot of gratitude to my parents, who are both, no longer with us, but who have made me who I am. And this is something that I will never forget, and that I keep alive in my life, because they were extremely good people. They were extremely good human beings, and they believed a lot in their 2 daughters as 2 people who are going to go out and do good with humankind. Now, I don't know that I have really done that, but whatever I am today is because of the values and the love and affection that I grew up with, mainly from my parents. My father was an army officer, and so we traveled all over India all the time. And I think that was a wonderful experience, because of the fact that I really grew up thinking of myself as Indian rather than as belonging to any particular part of India. And therefore, I think I did not have a very provincial attitude. I had a very open mind that my parents had, of course, but then my experiences all over India were with people from all communities, all languages, all castes, all creeds. And I think that was just such a great influence on my life, which I did not realize at that time. And then, of course, the big goal my parents had was that their daughters should be very well educated. And that was, they were very proud of us, and they believed in us, and they inspired us to do a lot. So, for example, wherever we were, whatever the extracurricular activities were in that particular city, we had to do them. So when we were in Wellington near Kunur, we had to go horse riding every morning at 5 o'clock. I was very young, but we had to get up. We had to walk 3 miles to the horse riding school, take something, a snack for the horse, learn how to ride horses, come walk back, and then go to school. We learned how to play the piano in Wellington. I learned how to do Kathak and Bharatanatyam at different stages in my life. And even when I was in my master's program, we were in a place where the officers' mess would invited a local painter who later on became very famous to give classes. And, I was like 19 years old at that time. And he said, you have to go take these painting classes. And I said, well, I really don't know anything about painting and I'm horrible at it and at drawing. He said, no, you just go do it. And I had to go do it, So, and all of these influences and experiences, I think really influenced my mind in many ways. So right now I'm so interested in art, for example, even though I cannot draw, I cannot paint, but I'm interested in art. I'm very interested in Indian culture for the same reason that, I traveled so much. And all of that was my childhood growing up. I did my bachelor's and master's at MS University in Baroda. There was a time when my father went to the China border after the China war in the early 1960s. I was very young at that time. It was a very difficult experience for me because for the first time, we left the army life and came into civilian life. We did not know where my father was. We had to send our letters to Army Post Office number 54, and they would be forwarded from there. He would come home once a year in those 3 years and be with us. And he was a very big influence in my life. And I missed him a great deal at that very crucial time in my life when I was becoming a teenager, because I was a very big reader. And he would always encouraged me to read. And also, he always took me to films that were very avant-garde and different, right? So even to this day, I'm not a very big Bollywood fan, with apologies to all of you. It's not that I don't see those films, but I'm very choosy about what I see. So even among the Bollywood films, I'm very choosy because he kind of established a certain kind of, a way of life and of thinking and living for me that influenced me a great deal. So that's my childhood. And I was lucky enough to go last fall to the Bumla Pass at the China border, and thought of my father so much because he was somewhere there. I still don't know where he was, but, he was a great letter writer. He used to write beautiful letters to us when he was so far away. My mother was a totally different inspiration. She came from a village, was so interested in education, was unable to get educated because of the condition. She lost her mother at a very young age, when she was 2 years old. And so, but she was so determined. My father kept a tutor for her and made sure she learned English so that she could speak to everybody in the army, she could communicate with everyone. And she learned English at that time, from a tutor. So apart from my life, I think my parents' life was very inspirational. And I'm sharing this with you simply because, this is what makes me who I am. And I hope even from my parents' life, you get some inspiration. Well, anyway, I finished my bachelor's and master's. I met somebody, married him. I was very academically oriented. So, married somebody who was also academically oriented. And we went abroad because he wanted to do his PhD. I had my children at that time. I have 2 daughters also. And then when he finished his PhD and got his first job, I started my PhD. Now, I tell you this not because I'm trying to boast or anything, but just to tell you that if you're determined to do something, you can do it. You just have to make up your mind, right? I had 2 little kids, 1-year-old and 3 years old, right? I started my PhD. We had a typical Indian home. So I was cooking food every day, packing everybody's lunches, making sure I got up at 5 so I could give a good breakfast to the family. We were my husband had just started working. I had no help at home. I took care of the garden. I took care of the cleaning. I did everything. And I was working 20 hours as a PhD student and taking my classes. And I did my PhD in 3.5 years. Now, this is not at all to praise myself, so please don't misunderstand me, but it's a matter of determination. It's in your hands, right? You want to make it, it's in your hands to make it, right? No matter what stands in front of you. And I'm not saying it's always easy. You might have certain obligations that you cannot overcome. So I'm not trying to put that down or lessen that in any way or make it seem like inconsequential. Yeah, there are circumstances where this is not possible. But despite whatever the difficulties were, I got my PhD. And then I went on to my career. And I knew that my interests were extremely international. I did not have an American perspective. I felt the US needed to know about the rest of the world. So from the very beginning, that's what I started doing. I started doing international work. In those days, travel and all of that was not very easy. So I did the kind of international work that I could stay in my own place in my own city in the United States and still do research that was internationally oriented. And at that time, it was a lucky kind of coincidence because there was a very big debate going on in UNESCO and among the, let's say about 100 countries that were in those days, we used to call them less developed, which we realize now is not a very good way of talking about them. And so they were very concerned about the fact that the US or Western media never covered these countries. And if they did, they covered them only when there was a coup or an earthquake, right? Some disaster happening. And we were portrayed as people who were helpless and so on and so forth. And so our countries got together and said, we have to change the news flow. We have to change the way news is distributed across the world. It's the West which is in control. We have good stories to tell about ourselves, and why are those stories not being told? Not that things have improved a lot right now, but again, it's in your hands, right? You are young people. It's in your hands to go ahead and make sure that the world knows everything about us, the good and the bad. I'm not saying that, if there is a problem in our country, we need to talk about it, right? Well, anyway, so that's what I did. But my real passion was communication for social change. I really wanted to do some work with communities around the world where we could understand an issue that was a problem for the community and then come up with solutions. And most of the times there was always a communication element, right? Even when you come up with a solution, you have to communicate it to the community. There wasn't much scope for such work in the United States, but somehow I would look for grants. I would do whatever I could to find opportunities. And that's how I traveled the world. And so I did projects of this kind in Vietnam, in Macedonia, a lot in Africa, in the East African countries. And I continue to think of that as my major passion. And again, none of that was easy. I used to land in Uganda in Entebbe at 9-10 o'clock at night. And it's like more than an hour's drive in a completely dark road from there to go to Kampala, which is their main city. And while I don't want to give a negative impression about any country, these countries were not considered very safe. And alone, I would land at that time, and irrespective of how afraid I was, I would get a taxi and I would go. And I walked slums. It was very, very difficult. I worked on HIV/AIDS in Uganda. And I walked slums, and it was really tough to see the people, almost as you might know, Africa at that time had only 10% of the world's population, but they had 66% of the HIV cases in the world. Think of that, right? So there was hardly any family that was not affected by it. And I would walk the slums because I wanted to do that project, right? Irrespective of how hard that was. So essentially, what I'm trying to tell you is that it's in your hands. If you decide you want to do this, you can do it. I'm not diminishing some problems that we might have in our life, which makes it impossible. But many of you are young. You have so much more opportunity today than I ever had. And I hope that you will, make something of your life where you are contributing to society, right? This is your country. And I think the best service you can give to your country is by doing something good for the people around you. So anytime any good is done to you, instead of asking for a thank you, just tell them, pass it on. Go return this good that I'm doing for you to somebody else who is in need. And let us pass on this good to other people, and it becomes a chain reaction where people learn to pass on the good. And that's what I'm saying. So my message to you is do well and pass on the good to other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jyotika. Now I want to know a few things more from you. Since you have visited so many countries, right from developing to developed countries, from Africa to Central Asia and all these countries now, though it's difficult to make a comparison and all, but still, what is the country, which is the country, and what is the research that you cherish most, given all your experience?
I would have to say that as far as my research is concerned, it was in East Africa that I cherished the most, because it was such a severe issue, and this HIV problem, and there were just so many people dying, and the medicine that was available was extremely expensive, till CIPLA, came in and created a version of that medicine that they were supplying very cheaply to many parts of the world. But initially people were just, any family you ask, if they had, let's say 7, 8 children, 5 or 6 of them, 4 or 5 would have passed away already. The 1 or 2 might still have HIV, and maybe there's 1 child who's HIV free, right? So it was a huge, huge issue. And I just somehow had a fascination for Africa from when I was a child, which is another long story. I won't go into it just now. And I just decided that that's where I want to do some of my work. And when HIV happened, I wrote for grants. And I went there and I started working with an NGO. And the project that we did, and this was in Kampala in Uganda, the project that we did was how to encourage couple testing. So the problem is that very often, couples are discordant, meaning one person might have HIV and the other doesn't have HIV. Now, it's really important to keep the non-positive person constantly non-positive, that they shouldn't get HIV, right, in the husband-wife pair. But it was always difficult for the person who's HIV infected to tell their partner that I have HIV. I did a lot of research with the people there. One of the main things is you don't go in and decide their problem. Let them tell you what the problem is, right? We as outsiders don't know what the problem is. So we don't ever go in as an expert. We go in very humbly with a lot of humility. And so for about 15, 20 days, all I did was talk to people. And then I found out that this is a major problem, because if both parents get infected, what's going to happen to the children, right? They don't have good diets there in the slums. Medicine was scarce. The parents at some point are going to get very sick and probably pass away. What will happen to the children, right? So we came up with a project from the advice of the main person who was the head there, and with all of the other people who helped me, that we wanted to promote what's called couple testing, in which we would encourage people to go and test as couples, and they would be in counseling situation, so that when the test result is revealed that one of them is negative and one is positive, they've already decided what they're going to do before even they take the test, that they're not going to have domestic violence, that they're not going to throw the person out, that they're not going to break up the marriage. And immediately such couples are put into a group of people who are called discordant couples club. And the counselor is with them, doesn't let them go home right away, right? So that they don't take anger back with them. And so we developed a video that we could use on the benefits of couple testing, that the NGOs could use and show it to the group, and then have a discussion about it, right? So that is a project that's very close to my heart, and Uganda is a beautiful country, as is almost every country. I would say not almost every country in the world. People are different, their customs are different, but everyone, is just wonderful. I go into these countries and don't use any judgment,
Yeah. But I mean, whatever you have narrated and just now, whatever you told us about Africa, so this means whatever you have been doing in most part of your life as far as research is concerned, it is more than the academic research, as you yourself pointed out initially, that the social change aspect is already there, whatever you have been doing. But taking such kind of risk, going to completely a country which is not known, where you do not you have the familiarity with the people, and so in such cases, so more than a researcher, you are inviting other kind of challenges in such a situation. In such a situation, what was the response of your husband and children?
So I have a very supportive husband in terms of my academic career. He in fact would never interfered with it, never said that I cannot do something. I would not have married him if I had been any different. I can tell you that. So I knew the kind of person I wanted to get married to. He's very, very supportive of my career in every possible way. So he never interfered with anything I wanted to do. I think my children were just used to seeing their mom from when they were babies, running around and working all the time and, doing everything that needed to be done. I had no fear of work or I never felt like I don't want to do this, like whether it was housework or cleaning or, ironing or whatever, because I did everything, right? This is work that needs to be done. Let me just get it done. Like that was my attitude. So I think my children just saw me doing that. And from childhood, they saw that I would go off for conferences. And the interesting part is that my children's teacher would know when I'm out of town, because their hair would be combed by my husband. They had long hair. And they would immediately say, it looks like your mom is not in town, right? Because he would try his best to make the choti, but it would be all over the place. So no, he never interfered. And my children I think just knew that from childhood, they'd seen me like that. So they knew that this is who their mom is, right? Yeah.
You told us about your parents, but what about your daughters? I mean, whether they followed your footprints or what all they did in their career, and how much your contribution has been instrumental in their making?
Well, I tell you that I'll tell you first what they do right now. My older daughter is a doctor in California. She knew from a very young age, I think from when she was in 7th or 8th grade, and we have 12 grades there. We don't have 11, we have 12. She knew that she wanted to be a physician. None of us is a physician. My sister is a physician here in India, but somehow she knew that she wanted to be a doctor. So there was no doubt in her mind about that. My younger daughter, on the other hand, was just the opposite. The only thing she knew is she did not want to be a doctor, but she did not know what she wanted to be. Right? My parents had let us do whatever we wanted to do. I was very fond of reading. Everyone was amazed that I didn't go into medical school, because I could have easily walked into medical school and become a doctor. And I said, but I don't want to be a doctor. I'm so fond of literature. I want to study literature. And my parents never interfered. And similarly, neither I nor my husband ever interfered with what our kids wanted to do. So she is a doctor. She loves her profession. She is an infectious diseases doctor who had a very, very rough time during COVID. Reason being that when COVID first came to the US, it first went to Washington State. And from Washington State, it went to California. And she works in California. And that was a time when nobody knew how to treat this disease. It was so new, right? So the difficulty they had, and she was the chief there. She was the head of the infectious diseases area. they went through 3 years of just immense trauma, always worried that, and I was really worried that she would pick up COVID, and she did in that first year. But she knew I would just go crazy if she told me. She didn't tell me till she had recovered from it. So she is a very dedicated doctor. She has won numerous prizes for the work that she does. She's a very humble person. She never boasts about anything she does. My younger daughter is a PhD in business and is a professor in the business school right now in Washington, D.C. at the University of Maryland. She was working at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, and she just moved last year to Washington, D.C. And both of them, I think, my older daughter was definitely very self-motivated. I never had to tell her that you do this or you do that or get your homework done, or, she was very, in fact, I had to tell her, this is too much, you don't take on one more activity, you're already doing too much. My younger daughter loves her life. So she has a much better balanced attitude towards life. But I think she also knew that she really wanted to do well. And now, again, not to boast about my children, but I hear from people who are her colleagues, because I'm in academics too, and they say she's amazing. I mean, she's very hardworking. She's, done very well, touch wood, in her career. But this is all also a lot of self-motivated work. I mean, so they saw both of their parents as being very hardworking. My husband is a true academic, a real researcher. Nothing else interests him. He can sit in front of the computer with his books and his research, and he can sit there for 15 hours a day and he's fine, right? So they saw that, and I think modeling, we forget the influence of modeling. Very often what our parents do, we tend to follow them, because without saying too many words, we see what they're doing. My children tell me now, a very strict parent, and I'm kind of sad that that was the case. But I had just too much on my hand. So I had to be very like clockwork and say, get your homework done, practice your piano, I have to take you to this game, I have to do this, that, and the other. So, so I think that, they're beautiful kids, they're lovely human beings, which is the most important thing, I think. They're very good to people around them. And my daughter, who's a doctor, is totally dedicated to the well-being of her patients. I mean, she goes out of her way to take care of them. So this is, I think, a trait. My sister is like that too. So yeah, that's my children.
Yeah. So talking about your reading habits, as you told us that you developed that habit right from childhood, and now you are into academics and research. So obviously that involves a lot of reading and all. But besides academics and all, what exactly you read? What are your interests? What kind of books you read? And I mean, is still where your interest lies as far as reading is concerned.
So yes, I read really. I read a lot of magazine articles, like from the New Yorker or the Atlantic once in a while. I listen these days because time is always short. When I'm exercising, I tend to listen to podcasts which are from National Public Radio, which are interviewing authors of literature. So I get to hear about books that they're reading, and then I pick them up. So my taste in reading is very literary. So it has to be serious literature, which not only tells a good story, but where the words in themselves are enjoyable, right? So when I read something, I definitely want it to be a very good story, but I want the words to be written in such a way that I stop and think, oh my goodness, look at how beautifully this particular emotion has been expressed. I wish I could write like that, right? So it's a pretty more serious kind of reading. I mean, for example, I don't read
you never attempted your hands in writing? I mean,
I don't think I'm a good writer. No, I'm not a creative writer. I'm just somebody who loves to read and who loves to enjoy words, and stories. So they're very kind of serious literature. I mean, I don't read like murder mysteries and all that unless they are really something that's well written. So that's my interest. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, you read only the books in English available in the US and all, as far as literature is concerned, or Indian literature also fascinates you?
Oh no, I read books in English because I'm sorry to say that while I can speak Hindi and Gujarati, I have lost the ability to read them, read those languages. I'm sure if I come back to India and stay for a year and get engrossed in it, I could do it. So I read only books written in English, but I read authors from all over the world. So it's not just American authors or European authors. I mean, look at the authors we have in India who are writing in English. I mean, amazing, right? So I just read a lot of Indian authors. I read a lot of African authors. Nigerian authors have become very well known. I read a lot of African authors. So my interests are around the world. Russia, of course, has a lot of literature, and a lot of this is translated literature, great writers from Russia. European, I mean, one of my favorite new authors is from Denmark, and so I've been reading all of his books. So, but these days I don't have time. So what I do is I get them as audiobooks. And then when I'm exercising, I listen to these, stories. But no, I read literature from all over the world, from everywhere. And similarly with academic writings, I read them from wherever they are, as long as they interest me. The only limitation I have is that I know only the English language, unfortunately.
Now, the final question I will be asking is, as far as your academic and research interests are concerned, you have done so much. What more is left that you aspire to do?
Oh, I still have so many ideas and I'm getting too old too fast. So I don't know what I can do. But as you know, and maybe the audience doesn't know, there's a project I'm working with Dr. Saxena and Dr. Maheshwari at DME, which is a huge project, and they've been so kind enough to help and take it over. And so it is on journalism, a journalist study of journalists, and they are amazed. I mean, I've been so impressed by DME and by everything that Dr. Saxena has done. And for the first time, I think I met somebody who I feel like is so serious that you can have a conversation with him. He knows exactly what to do. He's a man of very few words. And so I'm doing that project with him. And not to embarrass you, Dr. Saxena, but I'm saying what I really believe. So I'm doing a journalism project with him, and then I have another project that we're waiting for Indian government permission on, which is going to be with the University near Ahmedabad, and it is working with an NGO, Prabhat Foundation, that works with challenged children. And we're going to work with Anand University and Prabhat Foundation to tell more positive stories through audiovisual or through creative writing or maybe children's books. Because unfortunately, in every society, including our own society, we don't treat challenged children well, right? We say, we use language like, oh, usko kuch aata nahi hai, or whatever, that he's not ready for school, don't send him to school, or don't, she has some physical issues. So people say, oh, I don't want to play. Children may say, I don't want to play with her. So we're trying to give more, these children don't want to be portrayed as from point of view of pity. They are joyful children, so we are going to do a project with them. I have several projects that I've done and I'm doing on climate change and oceans. In Florida, they're destroying the coral. I just haven't had time to write them up. And my big passion now is I want to come back and work with the tribal community. So I'll be calling on Dr. Saxena again down the road, and Dr. Maheshwari. I really want to do that. Yeah. So there's a lot more to do. I have like 1,000 new ideas still. So you're going to be in trouble, Dr. Saxena and Dr. Maheshwari.
I mean, if you have 1,000 ideas, I also have 1,000 ideas, so it will make 2,000, and we can work together, no doubt.
Okay. Okay.
So at this point, I make this forum open to whosoever is there in this session. If anybody is interested in asking any question or put forth his or her point, please do that.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I have a very, like a very a question that I have always been willing to ask you in person. I mean, transformation, self-transformation takes a, lot of inspiration from others. Also about taking a lot of inspiration. We've been taking a lot of inspiration from you, me and Manasvi ma'am. We've been talking about, the depth of ideas when you are talking on, formal platforms, and the kind of words that you choose, the impeccable kind of a language that you use. So what does it take to be a Jyotika Ramaprasad, ma'am? Like, what are your scholarly habits? How does your day look like? How much time you spend on books and writing or reading, so that's my question. So that we can take inspiration and probably, try and follow the footsteps, that you will provide us with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Pandey, for your very kind words. I don't know whether I deserve them, but I tell you, I'm not, I'm not brilliant or anything like that. I work hard, I really do work hard, right? And I think that helps a lot, right? I'm also very excited about work, right? I don't think of work as something, it's not that I don't get tired. It's not that sometimes I wish I didn't have to do something, but I do get excited about work. When I start doing a project, I feel a sense of excitement, right? And that excitement is not because of the fact that, oh, I'll publish or I'll do this. The excitement is the participation or the doing of the project, right? That itself to me is a very satisfying kind of experience, right? So I like that. And so I would recommend that, I don't always schedule myself very well, in the sense that it's not like from 6 to 7 I do this, from 8 to 9 I do this. I don't work that way. I work all the time when it's necessary. It's like that, right? If I'm really exhausted and I need to rest, I can rest at any time, right? The academic work in the US is different. You don't have to be in the office all the time, because we do a lot of work from home, because we're less likely to be disturbed. It's your productivity which they want to see at the end. They're not worried about whether you're in the office or you're working from home. When you're teaching a class, you have to be there, you have to teach. When you have certain responsibilities, you have to do them. Did you meet your responsibility? So I might sometimes, when I'm really highly motivated, I might work like 14 hours a day continuously for a very long time. And then sometime I'll just say, okay, this is done now. I need to just do something else for 2 or 3 days, right? So I would say that, pick things to do that you like doing. That's one thing. Now, I haven't always done that. There are times when I've done things that I've not liked doing, but I have a very strong sense of ethical responsibility, that it's my responsibility to deliver when I promise somebody something, And remember one thing, Pramodji, that work gravitates towards people who will get it done, right? So automatically what happens is, because people know that I will get the work done, I will do it well, I'll give it in time, you keep getting more work. But then when you keep getting more work, you know that that person has confidence in you. The leader has some confidence in you. They know. And that is a very nice feeling. I don't need public acknowledgement. Dr. Maheshwari was saying, we tried to find things about you on the web and there's nothing. I said, I don't put anything up on the web about me. I'm who I am. If I meet people and I earn their respect, I'm happy. If I don't, I'm not doing it to get a lot of talias or anything like that, right? Or awards or anything. So, just pick things you're interested in doing. Don't let things distract you. Have a sense of responsibility. And do it well, right? Just say, I will take only one project if I have time only for one project. I'm going to do the best I can in this particular thing. And sometimes it's tough, for days you sit with the literature and you're reading and you're trying to synthesize, But I can tell you at the end of it, it's such a good feeling when you've written like 3 pages, which are just like, oh, I read like, 100 articles and I was able to synthesize it. I go through many drafts. So I won't do like 1 or 2 drafts. Each paper of mine will go through at least 30 drafts before I even send it. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm definitely going to get back on the recorded video and will probably note it down for myself. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
So moving on, there is a question, Professor Jyotika, in the chat box by Diksha Negi. She has asked, if you were not a teacher or a researcher, which profession you would have picked?
That's such a good question. I mean, both of these questions are wonderful. What would I have picked to do? I would have probably gone into the field to work in social change. I think that's what I would have done. I would have gone in to work with communities, maybe set up something on my own. I still have that dream, by the way, Dr. Saxena, in case you're asking me what's left to do. I still have a dream, and maybe with the tribal community, that's still my dream, to set up some kind of a community-based organization where, local people are responsible for their welfare, and we are just a catalyst there and facilitator and so on. So I think that that's what I would have probably done. Or the other fields that really, really interest me when I was doing English literature too, I used to think about them, is I probably would have been either an anthropologist or an archaeologist. I love those subjects. I love looking into old things and studying people and their culture. I mean, anthropology is so interesting, right? I'm basically a humanist, right? That's what I am. So that's what I would have done. Thank you for asking that.
Thank you, Sajal. You want to ask something?
It was wonderful listening to you. I wanted to know what was the toughest time for you and how you came back, how you fought.
It was the toughest time for me. I think, I've had many tough times in life. I know people may look at me and say, oh, she's had everything good in her life, so she can do what she wants to. That's not true. Most of us don't talk about the troubles we've had or the problems we've had in our lives, right? So I've had many of them. The one that I think I can most share that y'all might be able to relate to is, I had a difficult time adjusting to the United States. I know this will come as a shock to all of you, but I love family, I love friends, I love the sense of community. I believe that we are here for each other and not just for ourselves, right? I grew up in an extremely loving family. I even now come back to where my sister lives, and all my relatives and all of them. I mean, we are a family, extended family, where we can call on each other for anything, right? I have to just say, oh, I want to eat this. And there'll be 3 aunts of mine who'll say, okay, when are you coming? And we'll make this for you. Like, they'll be there if you have problems, if you're in the hospital or anything like that. So for me, the difference in our 2 societies was too much to handle. It's a very individual, and I'm not criticizing the United States. They just have a different culture, right? They're very individualistic. They're not relationship oriented. I grew up in a country and a family that's very relationship oriented. So I had a very, very tough time. And when we first went there, just so that all of you know, my husband, we go on what's called an assistantship. And I was not working. I was pregnant with my first child, and then I had my second child too. My husband's assistantship at that time was $120 a month for 11 months. So we had to save from that $120 for the 12th month. I had a child, who was born soon after, right? Our rent, sorry, I made a mistake. It was $180 and our rent was $120, right? We had to manage everything in that much. For 3 years, I did not even buy a piece of chocolate for myself because I couldn't afford it, right? Yeah, and my parents and my sister were unhappy about it. They said, come back, why are you living like this, But my husband really wanted to do his PhD, right? So that's why I'm telling you that everything looks great from the outside. we wore other people's clothes. He had friends here who would send us clothes. We would wear those clothes. My cousins lived here, so they bought me a warm coat to wear because I was in a cold place. We went to a garage sale and picked up old pots and pans, and we used those pots and pans. We always ate well, because one thing my parents taught me, that don't spend on other things, but you must eat healthy food. That was very important for my parents. My parents always said, it's not necessary to have 20 pairs of clothes, but you must eat healthy food and you must be kind to other people and share what you have. It was a very, very tough time. I mean, nobody talks to you, you're alone. Nobody knows you. And in those days, nobody knew about India. There were no Indians around. There was no Indian grocery store, right? I spent 3 years of utter loneliness, in a very, very difficult financial situation. So you have to, when I say, you go through these situations if you're determined, and you have to have a determination. Nobody in India was happy about me living like that. But my husband wanted to study, so. Did that...
Dr. Manmeet Kaur has written, you are a real inspiration.
Oh.
Thank you for joining us for VIS. When you started your journey as a researcher, there must be ups and downs. What inspires you to go beyond limits to do research? And there's another question. I mean, I will read out both the questions. This was one. Second is, what is your hobby apart from reading and doing research and inspire us as an academic? Yeah.
So right now, my greatest hobby is playing with my grandchildren. I know you didn't expect that, but I have 3 little granddaughters, and oh my goodness, if I'm there, that's the one thing I will always make time for, playing with them. But to answer your question more seriously, I really love to walk. I know that doesn't seem like a hobby, but walking and going to beautiful, serene places and walking there is really, really important, because what that does, if I'm not listening to an audio podcast or something like that, it's like a form of meditation for me, So there are times when I used to walk 10 miles every day, not all together, but I'd walk about 4 in the morning, 4 a little bit later, and then after dinner, maybe another 2 miles, right? I love that. And it becomes a way, and I would walk. And one thing is, of course, in the US, you have very, nice sidewalks where you can walk very easily. There's no problem, like in the sense of you can go, or there'll be a park close by or a lake close by, and you can walk really easily. So there is no no worry about, okay, I'm going to trip over something. So you can just, your mind can just be free of things, right? You can enjoy the surroundings. So walking is like meditation for me. And so I love to walk. And of course, I love to travel. I mean, that I would travel all over the world. I always say that COVID stole a lot of things from a lot of people. And my loss is not that much, because my daughter did recover. But my loss is that at my age, I don't have too much time left. I wanted to travel. I had planned 4 countries for every summer. So I lost traveling to 16 countries because of that. So I love traveling. That's the other hobby I have. And from Manmeet Kaur's Professor...
She was asking, what inspires you to go beyond limits to do research?
See, Professor Kaur, like I told Professor Pandey, all of the things I told him are part of the inspiration, but I'll add one more thing especially, is that, when you do good work and I'm not being humble, I'm telling you honestly, I'm a pretty mid-class known researcher. I'm not a star in the United States, I did not have the kind of time and situation in my life where I could just totally dedicate it only to my research, right? There are stars, there's people who that's all they do, and they're like highly, highly published, right? So I'm nowhere near that class of people. But one of the things that, Professor Kaur, that you might want to keep in mind is that there are two things. One is it creates a sense of self-satisfaction. You will feel so good after you finish something, right? It is like a high. It makes you feel good. The second thing is people notice it. I never go out and tell people anything about what I've done. But over a period of time, your supervisors will notice it. That she's somebody I can count on. She's somebody who will get the work done. And there's a great, you don't need to tell the whole world, but the sense that somebody recognized that you are who you are and that you're giving it your best. And they will say one word to you maybe sometime, and that will make you feel more inspired. So I would also encourage all of you that when a compliment is due, give it, okay? It costs you nothing. You see somebody doing good work, tell them that, right? Your classmate might get a better mark than you. Instead of feeling jealous, tell them, oh my goodness, I'm so proud of you, that you did this. It doesn't cost you anything, right? So, I would encourage all of you to please do that, okay? And so, Professor Kaur, that itself could be, apart from everything else I said, is an inspiration. If somebody says, hi, if I give Professor Kaur, like the other day, I love the way you speak, or the way Sajal talks on the mic, very good diction, very well, good delivery. I immediately came and told you that, right? So when people recognize, and in your line, it is probably the idea that you have to get some research done. It's difficult, but kar do, and then somebody will tell you, okay, oh my gosh, you did this, how wonderful. I'll tell you that when you send me a paper that you have sent to a conference and that got accepted. Okay, so motivate yourself, and then other people will help you to get motivated.
Thank you, Professor Jyotika. There's one more question by Piyusha. Piyusha, will you come on camera and ask, or?
Yes, sir, I will come. Hello, ma'am. I actually wanted to say something for a very long time. My question was actually asked by Pramod sir only. I had a similar question, but I actually want to say something. I've never seen anybody so humble like you after achieving all the things and being a part of academics at such a stature. You are so humble, and even while you were here throughout, even grateful for small little things, being grateful for little things that other people are doing to you. These things I actually have learned a lot from you. I never got a chance to say that, but today I'm getting a chance, so I want to say that. And because all the questions related to your life are already asked by other people, which I also wanted to ask, so I will ask you a question which is not related to your life, but something more than that, is that you have taught in the States and you have also taught in India. Yeah, you know about the higher education system and academics. What are the major big differences that you see in both in India and in States, and could be a vice versa thing which we can learn and change, not in terms of the government level or the governance level, but from our level as a teacher or as a researcher, which we have seen that people over there do and we don't do, or maybe we do and they don't do. So it can be a vice versa thing. What are your insights to it? That is what I wanted to really know.
Yeah, so, there is definitely, and this is not a criticism of anybody, so please don't get me wrong, but there is a lot more professionalism in the US. So when you say that, you have to teach certain classes, you have to be there, you have to get it done. It starts at that time. When you are in a meeting, you have the freedom. The freedom part is very important, right? Everyone is allowed to give their ideas. You do it, I can disagree with you on something. I don't have to fight about it. I can just say I have a different point of view, right, on something. It's not a cause for anger. So we are a little bit more open. We are, when we have meetings and we have ideas, it doesn't always happen. There are good and bad people all over the world, right? So sometimes, it's not always easy to say what you think, but we are, so that's one thing. The other thing is there's a great accountability system there. So, I mean, you cannot just take it easy. right? I mean, I'm not saying you, what I'm meaning is people cannot just take it easy. So you have to kind of deliver. If you don't deliver, you are going to be told that you're not delivering. There is no if and but about it, right? So that kind of system does that. Now, even with that system, some people will do the minimum that they have to, they will deliver, but they will not be excited about more things, right? What I really like about India, while I wish, and I'm not talking about DME because my experience in DME is different, but in many places it's like no, and while I respect cultural differences, but when you're in a professional space, this idea that what is time and what is space, how do we do something in a professional manner, right? That sometimes I feel is definitely lacking here in many places, even in universities. If we ourselves are not going to do it as professors, how do we expect our students to do it? You expect the student to come. Like, many places I said that I want to come and do this training for this project and all. They said, oh, students are supposed to come on July 3rd. And again, please don't misunderstand me, but you asked me a question and I want to be honest in my answer. But nobody will show up on July 3rd. They may come after 10 days. And I'm like, when school starts, that first day we meet, and then the first day in my class, you will already learn so much. If you miss even my first class, you've missed. If it's a 3-hour class, you've missed 3 hours of solid learning. I'm not just going to waste those 3 hours of my students, So what we need to change the system, right? We need to say, students, you have to be here. Otherwise, you're going to be penalized for it. And professors, you have to be here and you better be here at 9 o'clock and teach that class, right? Now, there are times when I'll go to a conference, but if I go to a conference, I make sure I have permission. I make sure somebody else is teaching that class for me. And I tell them, I will teach your class the next time. So we trade like this, that today I'm going for 2 days for this conference. Can you please do this? I try to schedule it in a way where I have an exam on that day. So the other person has to just come and oversee an exam. They don't have to teach. So it's easy for the other person to come and to take care of. So I feel that difference is quite large, I feel. But what I love about India is this relationship, right? I mean, there's a lot of respect. I mean, the way you all respect your teachers, and I'm not saying that it has to be adulation, but there's a certain sense of respect and things that in the US, it's not there. I mean, students will walk in, sometimes I've even seen put their feet over the desk or something like that. And, and again, that's an exception. I'm not saying that always happens, but they walk in, it's late or something like that, So there's a little bit of that kind of stuff that happens. But I think we both of us have things to learn from each other, I think. So it's not that one country is superior to another.
So moving on, since we are already delayed as far as completing the session, But then Ashish Chatterjee is here. Ashish ji, please ask your question quick.
Ma'am, respect. Wow, what a journey! What a journey! I think from your journey, I have made out that your day is of 48 hours, not 24 hours. and really, I think about those persons who say, I don't have time, right? It's wonderful listening to you. One small question, that whatever you had learned in your childhood, do you still carry or do practice one of those activities like dance, music, painting?
I don't. The one thing I love to do is dance. I still love to dance. So while I don't do classical dancing or anything, the difficulty was, we were in a place only for 2 years, right? So we had to always have to learn something different. So we couldn't continue something. But that interest in dancing stayed with me. I love to dance, so I will dance. I love ballroom dancing. My father used to do, army, we do that, the ballroom dancing, balls and all that. He used to dance with me. So I made my husband go to dancing classes with me. He's so sweet. He went with me, but he's got 2 left feet. He can't dance at all. He can't count the beat. So I had to count the beat 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And he would try, but we gave up after 2 years of trying. So if I get a good dancing partner, I love to dance. But these days, even the way dance has evolved, you dance on your own, right? All of you get to the floor.
Yeah.
But I haven't had a chance for a long time to do that. And I think now I'm not sure that I can really move as fast as I used to. So yeah, I love it. I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful listening to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Respect,
Okay.
respect.
Thank you.
Okay, so now moving on towards the conclusion of the program, it was such a fantastic session that everybody in the session wanted it to continue, but then we have to end somewhere. I'm really grateful to you, Professor Jyotika Ramaprasad, to be with us for such a long time and sharing all those things which really matter for each one of us. And I believe everybody would have learned at least one thing, which is the determination. So if you have the determination, then obviously no task is difficult for us. And it is for everybody, for the teachers, for the students, for everybody in this session. And we have to be serious to whatever we are doing. And if that is there, we can achieve any task. So with this, we finish this session. Yeah, Professor Jyotika, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say something. I don't want to end without saying that we have a wonderful new dean in my school. Her name is Dr. Karen Wilkins. And she is somebody who is an inspiration in many ways. She's a very kind person, very good scholar. Usually deans, many deans in the US are more administratively oriented, but she still writes and does a lot of research. And her area is communication for social change. But she has a different, not so much project oriented, but she critiques how NGOs communicate, right? It's all about creating an image and how much of it is about doing good work. So she's an excellent scholar. And now finally, I have somebody who really recognizes, I'm the only other person in the school who does social change work. So I finally have somebody who recognizes, or who not recognizes so much, but who is on the same page as I am, And so it's been wonderful having Dr. Wilkins as my dean. And we have just started this is not a promotion, by the way, anyway, but I'm just telling you that we just designed a new master's in global social change, which is going to be launched this fall. And so, I think as Dr. Saxena, so what's more left to do? Well, I want students, I want to teach students in the MA, and I want now us to have a PhD in social change. There's a lot more to do still.
Yeah,
I have the right setting for it now. So, and thank you all for listening to me. I'm so grateful for all your kind comments, and, keep doing good work and just basically be a good human being.
The first impression that comes to our mind about any college: tall buildings, big classrooms, large lobby areas, thick books, IT labs, assignments, class tests, and projects. Nothing besides that. Every hour, minute, second spent here help us carving and shaping our persona, cultivating innovative mindsets for the challenging world. Learning is a lifelong process. Sharing knowledge, inculcating values of life, spark the innovative horizons of mind. Fun and frolic is the nature of every nook and corner here. A daily dose of thrill we are sure to get here.